Let's not become aware of the presence of our Lord Jesus Christ, who has brought us all together tonight, and listen to the Word of God. Peter, standing up with the 11, lifted up his voice and spoke to them, "You men of Judea, and all you that dwell in Jerusalem, let this be known to you, and with your ears receive my words. For these men are not drunk, as you suppose, seeing it is but the 3rd hour of the day. But this is that which was spoken of by the prophet Joel. And it shall come to pass in the last days, saith the Lord, I will pour out of my Spirit, I will pour out of my Spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, and your young men shall see visions, and your old men shall dream dreams. And upon my servants indeed, and upon my handmaids will I pour out in those days of my Spirit, and they shall prophesy. And I will show wonders in the heaven above, and signs on the earth beneath, blood and fire and vapor of smoke. The sun shall be turned into darkness, and the moon into blood, before the great and manifest day of the Lord come. And it shall come to pass that whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. You men of Israel, hear these words. Jesus of Nazareth, a man approved of God among you by miracles and wonders and signs, which God did by him in the midst of you, as you also know. This same being delivered up by the determinate counsel and foreknowledge of God, you by the hands of wicked men have crucified and slain, whom God hath raised up, having loosed the sorrows of hell, as it was impossible that he should be holden by it. For David saith concerning him, I foresaw the Lord before my face, because he is at my right hand, that I may not be moved. For this my heart hath been glad, and my tongue hath rejoiced. Moreover, my flesh also shall rest in hope, because thou wilt not leave my soul in hell, nor suffer thy Holy One to see corruption. Thou hast made known to me the ways of life. Thou shalt make me full of joy with thy countenance. You, brothers, let me freely speak to you of the patriarch David, that he died and was buried, and his sepulchre is with us to this present day. Whereas therefore he was a prophet, and knew that God had sworn to him with an oath, that of the fruit of his loins one should sit upon his throne. Foreseeing this, he spoke of the resurrection of Christ. For neither was he left in hell, neither did his flesh see corruption. This Jesus hath God raised again, whereof all we are witnesses. Being exalted therefore by the right hand of God, and having received of the Father the promise of the Holy Spirit, he hath poured forth this which you see and hear. For David ascended not into heaven, but he himself said, The Lord said to my Lord, Sit on my right hand, until I make your enemies your footstool. Therefore, let all the house of Israel know most certainly that God has made both Lord and Christ this same Jesus, whom you have crucified. Now when they had heard this, when they heard these words, they had compunction in their heart, and said to Peter and to the rest of the apostles, What shall we do? But Peter said to them, Do penance and be baptized, every one of you, in the name of Jesus Christ, for the remission of your sins, and you shall receive the gift of the Holy Spirit. For the promise is to you and to your children and to all that are far off, whomsoever the Lord our God shall call. And with many other words did he testify and exhort them, saying, Save yourselves from this perverse generation. They, therefore, that received his word were baptized, and there were added in that day about 3,000 souls. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. I use this reading because it frames for us exactly what we are all about as Catholics when we are sent out as disciples and as ones who are sent out to make disciples. There are three things that I hope that we can accomplish this evening. Very good job. You got it. Didn't have to tell you to put to the next one. Thank you. I have a guardian angel that moves this for me, by the way. There are three things that I hope that we can accomplish this evening. And I always hope that when I get presentations or homilies or workshops, that they're helpful for you. That's, by the way, is why we have, I think it is running. Yeah, the screen turns off to save the battery. Yeah. Let's give him a hand. He's keeping an eye on this stuff. Good job, man. Good job. You know, man, right? He's the seminarian. We also call him Brother Man. Brother Man. It has to be helpful for you. It has to be worth it because you decided you could have done anything tonight. You could have done anything, but you decided to be here. That means something because you are very busy, very, very busy people. I don't know how you do it. People say, "Oh, Father, you're busy." I'm thinking, well, parents are extremely busy, working, taking care of their kids, and then some of you have also been going through all kinds of things because of Hurricane Harvey, and you're either having to work twice as much or you're having to rebuild your house and you're dealing with all this stuff, but you showed up here tonight, and I want to make sure that tonight is helpful for you, that it is inspiring for you. That also, by the way, is why we're passing out surveys, because it's important to continue that dialogue to make sure that we're helping you to grow as followers of Jesus Christ. So the three things that we hope to accomplish tonight for you: to learn about the current needs of the Catholic Church. And that's going to be the frame for us to understand the needs of the youth ministry. Second, learn about how to respond to those needs, especially regarding youth ministry. And third, to form a personal action plan that hopefully each of you will walk out with tonight. And then we'll have questions and answers at the end. So I'm going to move rather expeditiously, rather quickly through this, and that way we can have more time for questions and answers at the end. And that will not just be questions posed to me, but also to our four people who belong to the Office of Evangelization and Catechesis, whom you got to know a little bit in the introduction. So moving on to the next thing. Kerygma? Have you heard of the word kerygma? Who has heard of the word kerygma? If you've heard of it. Yeah. This is often referred to also as the kerygma enigma. Why is it called the kerygma enigma? Because the Catholic Church, especially over the past 500 years, has in some ways shifted its focus on towards catechesis and catechetical programs, so CCE, Sunday school, etc., etc. Why is that? It's because 500 years ago we were dealing with a controversy. That controversy was the split of the church in the West, all throughout Europe. Lutheranism, Calvinism, all kinds of isms. And when that was happening, there was a lack of clarity among the laity. And so the Catholic Church took steps to begin to teach the faithful with greater intensity in order to help them in the midst of all of that confusion when Christians all throughout Europe were breaking away from the Catholic Church and coming up with their own doctrines. So that was the approach. That's what the Catholic Church offered to the faithful, and it worked. It worked. And it helped the people to preserve the faith and to grow in the faith. And back then, the Catholic Church was very strong in the hearts and minds and the culture of the people. And they were all connected together in a cohesive community. And all of them found the locus or the center of their community in the parish. If you go to Europe today, you go through the old towns in Europe, or even the new towns in Europe, all throughout France and Germany, etc., you will find at almost every crossroads a church. At every main central square or crossroads a church. That's especially true in Italy. Things have changed though, and I won't go into the whole complex history of it, but the things that have changed is that we focused a lot now on catechesis in terms of community. We have become isolated, separated, scattered, dispersed, disjointed. That's true of community of the community in general, especially in the West, like in the United States. And this area, we're right along with that same situation. So it is in the culture around us, and it is the same as well in the Catholic parishes all throughout the U.S. So now what we are facing is a situation where we are disjointed, and also where we have therefore lost the means by which we proclaim the kerygma. So again, kerygma, okay, go back. Thank you. So what is the kerygma? I've been talking about this and how the community breaking down has impacted our ability to understand what the kerygma is and to proclaim it. So what is it? The kerygma is a spiritually powerful and clear and convincing proclamation of the message of Jesus Christ that leads others into repentance. That's why I read the Acts of the Apostles. That's the kerygma, what Peter was engaging in. Now, he was saying some pretty strong things. He was saying, this Jesus whom you crucified, God raised from the dead. And he would also say at other times, be converted and be saved from this wicked generation. Wow, who says stuff like that anymore? Right? Who says stuff like that? Well, remember that in the days of Peter, he was actually speaking to brethren. That's why he says brothers. Who's he speaking to? He's speaking to his brother and sister Jews. In a time period where it was acceptable to proclaim public messages out in the public, right? And it was acceptable to do that. Why? Because you didn't have TV or social media. So to get important messages out, that's how you did it. You did it face to face. Not only that, but Peter was integrated with the local community. So they all knew each other. In fact, it even says in the story that when the apostles came down and they were all speaking the different languages, if you remember the story, and they said, we know these men to be Jews. How can they speak the languages that we speak, 1,000 miles away, right? So there was a community already. There was connection. Now what we have is we don't have community, and we don't have, it seems to us, yet an effective way to proclaim that kerygma. Not only that, because we have, as a Catholic Church, fallen out of that ability to really proclaim the gospel, we've forgotten what the kerygma is and how to do it. So let's go a bit deeper into the impact that has had in the Catholic Church, especially in the past 50 to 100 years. Next slide. I would like to refer you to this book called Forming Intentional Disciples by Sherry Whittle. Do we have that here? Huh? Do we have it here or no?
Oh.
We don't have the book here? No? Yes?
It might be at home. I don't know.
Oh, Lowell is running. I had that Lowell song? Did you hear it? Y'all familiar with the Lowell song? Kids? You're familiar with it, right? Lowell. I accidentally played it when Dan came up. I was trying to play it for Lowell because it's LOL. LOL. I'm a horrible comedian. Nobody thinks I'm funny.
I do.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. All right, I got some fans here. That makes me feel good. That completes me. Affirmation.
Not that you embarrassed me. I have to tell you, you don't have it.
Oh, you don't have it? Okay, that's okay. So I really want to refer you to this. This is a seminal work right now. I remember when I was at Resurrection, I was a new pastor, and I realized after a couple of years, when I was putting forth all of this effort and working with volunteers and trying to get people really excited about things and get started, and then we just ran into the same wall that every parish runs into, where you have the same people all doing the same thing in the parish. And I remember one of the first things that I did as a pastor coming in, what pastors like to do sometimes? Like to build, right? And change things and ask for money. I don't like asking for money, but I like to build and spend money, right? And I spent the Archdiocese's money anyway, so my people didn't pay for it. I asked for a lot of money and they gave it to me. I was very surprised. But anyway, so that's what I was starting out. It's the mistake of St. Francis. The Lord told him, rebuild my church. And what does he do? He goes and he looks at the church and it's got holes in the wall and he starts rebuilding it. But then he learned over time that the Lord was talking about rebuilding the church and the people because the people are the church. So I was asking a very wise pastor, Father John Keller. Anybody know him from Prince of Peace? Father John Keller recommended this book to me. And he said, everybody, all the pastors are reading this. And the bishops are paying attention to the work of this woman who did a lot of research on the state of the church and what is actually happening. Next slide. She looks at this Pew Research that looked into the religious state of affairs in the United States. And it's a very comprehensive study, and I won't go into it too much right now, but I just want to highlight three things that came to my attention and that is really relevant for tonight. Number one, that 18% of Catholics, when they were surveyed, 18% of Catholics who identified themselves as Catholics said that they go to frequent Mass attendance. Then there is a massive number of people, and it is really becoming more of the majority of people who identify themselves as spiritual but not belonging to an organized religion. So have you heard of the phrase spiritual, not religious? Anybody have heard of that? I'm spiritual, not religious, right? Yeah, it's a very common phrase. Those are called the nuns. They don't identify with a specific religion, but they believe in God. It's very fascinating. 94% of the United States believes in God, that they believe that there is a God, right? 94%. The 6%, there's like 4% are atheists and the other 2% are agnostic. And the fascinating thing is that 4%, or it was something like 40% of the atheists have a prayer life. They say they still pray. I don't know, it's interesting. I'm not sure what they pray to. But there's this deep religious sensibility in the U.S., but a lot of them are becoming nuns. No affiliation. Spiritual, not religious. Next slide, please. The next book I would like to refer you to is called The Four Signs of a Dynamic Catholic by Matthew Kelly. I recommend that you check that out. Next slide. And he looks into the same question, and he sort of integrates or connects with a lot of what Sherry Whittle was saying in Forming Intentional Disciples. In the book, Matthew Kelly looks into the Catholic Church, and he says, we got some real challenges, we got some real problems here, and the problems that I just described already. And so what he did was that he looked into corporations, successful corporations. Why? Because successful corporations tend to be very connected, they tend to be very productive, very successful. Corporation is connected to the word corpus, which means body. And we can think of church, the body of Christ. So corporations reflect for us that deeper reality that we already have as a church. So he studies successful corporations, and he looks deeper into the 80-20 principle. Here, people have been professionals, or have you heard of the 80-20 principle? Yeah, so you know what it means, right? That 20% of the people do 80% of the work. That is a very typical thing. Now, Matthew Kelly applied a certain kind of research into the church to see if that is the case here, looking into the 80-20. Is it the same? Do we have 20% of the people in the Catholic Church doing 80% of the work? And he identified those who are doing, who would be doing 80% of the work, or 20% of the work as dynamic Catholics, name of the book. And he says that they have four characteristics. Dynamic Catholics have four characteristics. Number one, they're people of prayer. So they attend Mass faithfully or frequently. They also pray. They have a prayer life where they pray every single day in some form or fashion. The second is that they engage in formation. That means they're learning about the faith. So they're reading about the faith. They're not becoming theologians. They're not going to college to study the Bible. They're just simply every single day or regularly learning about their faith. They're interested in it and they feed it. Number three, they give financially to their parish, to the local parish. And they have that connection with the parish through financial giving. And number four is service. So they do something in the parish or in the life of the church and its mission. So those are the four signs of a dynamic Catholic. So when he took all of those four signs and applied those to his surveys with people who identified themselves as Catholic, it didn't end up being 80-20. It ended up being 93-7. 7% of Catholics do 93% of the work of the church. Only 7% carry those four signs of dynamic Catholicism. Folks, when we look at the Acts of the Apostles, and Peter proclaimed the Kerygma, and it said 3,000 souls were converted that very day. 3,000 souls that very day. It's easy for us to say, well, that was back in the day in the Acts of the Apostles when things were easier. Well, that was different back then when the Holy Spirit was, that was Peter, St. Peter, right? It's different. I like what Pope Francis says. He says, no, it's not. It's not any different. It's not more difficult. It's not less difficult. It's just different. Different challenge, same mission. Different people, same Jesus. Different kind of work, same disciples. There's no reason why we cannot tonight proclaim the gospel, go out there and proclaim it tonight, and then have 3,000 youth join. 3,000 youth join in the mission of the church in some way. Now, does the Lord want us to do that? That's a different story. Okay, so that's the situation. So what's the response? What's the response of the church? You got it. First of all, recognize the mechanistic maintenance of the Catholic Church. So Sherry Whittle goes further into the issues that we have in the church. She's talking about, of course, how we're distancing ourselves from the charismatic, the foundational proclamation of Jesus, into becoming a maintenance church. So what does that mean, mechanistic maintenance? Well, I came up with that word, mechanistic. You like it? Yeah? Everybody likes it. Mechanistic maintenance. That means that we have a kind of mechanical faith. So here's what the life and journey of the Catholic looks like. That's very, very typical. If you look at the 93%, here's what it looks like. Joe Schmo is baptized when he's a baby. He gets baptized. And his parents and godparents are there. It's a wonderful day. And then the parents and godparents very, very faithfully take their child to Mass every Christmas and every Easter. They may not show up between those times. And so they do this. They do this until First Communion comes around. And then when First Communion comes around, they're very faithful in taking their children to CCE so that they can get their First Communion, right? Well, there's varying degrees of faithfulness to that, right? But a lot of them do. A lot of them do. They do their own formation, they get them ready, they work hard, they're making that time, and then they get the kids to First Communion, the kids receive First Communion, and then after that, then they faithfully take their children to Mass every Christmas and every Easter. And some Masses in between. And they continue in this cycle, all the way until it's time to get ready for confirmation. And again, they work hard. And the kids are taking the confirmation classes and they go through it. For 2 years of formation, they go through it, right? And when they get confirmed, it's wonderful. And they have a sponsor, and they have parents, and the cardinal is there. And they receive confirmation, they receive this amazing message. And then after that, the parents and godparents and sponsor, they are very faithful to make sure that their children go to Mass every Easter and every Christmas. After that, the child graduates from high school and they go on to college. And surprise, surprise, they make sure to go to Mass every Christmas and every Easter. In the best of situations, there could be a parent also, and that's not always the case, that there are parents, and I have parents here who take their kids very faithfully to Sunday Mass every Sunday. And then after they go to a great Life Team program, a great high school program, they graduate from high school, they go on to college, and after going to Mass faithfully every Sunday, they are very faithful by going to Mass when they go home to visit the family. And that's when they go. They end up becoming just like the rest of the Catholic population. So that's very interesting. It's very interesting that's happening as well. And that's what came out in the Pew Research. And then finally, we hope that they get married in the church. They might get married at a destination. They might get married on the beach somewhere with great significance and great spirituality, because they are spiritual, and we have to honor that. But there's that disconnect from the church. But even with all of that disconnection, in the end, they will most likely come back for their own funeral. They have a funeral Mass set for them. And I would say about 80% of the Masses that I celebrate is with families that have been disconnected from the church for years. So what's the problem here? And this is what ends up sometimes being thought of as a solution. We say the problem is they're not going to Mass every Sunday. That's the problem. Or they don't understand the faith. They don't understand what the Mass means. That can be part of the challenge, but that's not the real problem. The real problem, the real challenge, is that many, perhaps even most Catholics, don't have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. They haven't gone head over heels for the man, for the God. Have they had that actual encounter? Have they had the kerygma preached to them? That's the situation. So what's the response then? We move from maintenance to mission. We move from mechanism to relationship. That's the response. That's the response of the church. I am of the mind, and this is just the gospel according to Father Christopher, that we should not be giving First Communion to children because they're 7 years old, and it's time. We give communion to kids when they're ready. And if they're 7 years old, they don't understand communion, and they're not participating in the daily life of the Mass, and in accordance with their own maturity, if they're not actually living out Catholicism, right? They shouldn't receive First Communion. Not because it's a rule, but it's to respect their own journey with Jesus. Same thing with confirmation. And I have actually let parents know that we're not going to let a certain child be confirmed, because it would be unfair to that child. Because it's spiritually damaging, actually, to give a sacrament to a human being that is not ready to receive the sacrament, but then they fall into the sin of presumption because they think that the confirmation by itself saves me. That confirmation, having gone through the ritual of going to the church and getting oil placed on my forehead, even though I really did receive that grace, but I wasn't ready to really receive it, they go on the rest of their lives thinking, I got that list, I got it checked, now I can move on to the next thing. Spiritually harmful. Now, am I going to start making changes right now with the confirmation program, First Communion program? No, I'm not going to. Don't worry, Cindy, you can breathe. You can breathe comfortably. No, we're going to go a different direction. We're going to go a different direction, and that's what I'm going to get more into right now. We're going to refocus on the personal conversion for ourselves and for others, and we're going to reclaim our call to evangelize as Catholics. Now, are you getting the sense right now that I'm sounding a bit Protestant? When I talk about personal relationship, do you believe that Jesus Christ is your personal Lord and Savior? Have you heard that before? Are you reborn? Are you born again? Right? You have that relationship with Jesus Christ our Lord? Amen. Hey, come on up here. Do an altar call, right? It's a beautiful thing. We're learning from our Protestant brothers and sisters, by the way. In fact, Matthew Kelly and Sherry Whittle, they did a lot of studies into some of the fundamentalist Christians that get made fun of a lot, but they're on fire and they're going out. They get made fun of because they're actually going out and proclaiming the gospel. And that's what happens when you go out and proclaim the gospel. You get made fun of. Jesus said that's what's going to happen. But also you get a lot of people believing in Jesus. It's a beautiful thing. They just don't have the sacraments except baptism. That's really sad. But we combine forces and we learn from them that the personal relationship is important. So when we reclaim our call to evangelize, thank you. We first ask the question when we approach evangelization, and this is the part where we can kind of get confused about how to evangelize, because often when we think of the word evangelization, we think about just proclaiming the gospel to others and letting them know about Jesus, but also at times we don't know exactly what the next steps are. So I know that sometimes I talk about it from the anvil. I talk about proclaiming Jesus, right? I say go to your homes, go to your workplaces and proclaim Jesus Christ. I imagine sometimes you look at me and you think, Father, that's easy for you to say. Do you think that sometimes? Oh, good. Muy bien, gracias. Thank you. Thank you for your honesty. That's great. That's great. And if you don't think that either, it doesn't matter. So, and you know what? It is. It is. It is easy for me to say because that's my job. That's my vocation. And I do it in a very safe place because when people come to church, they expect to hear about Jesus Christ. You go to McDonald's, you expect a hamburger. You go to the church, you expect to hear about Jesus. But when they go to work, they don't expect to hear about Jesus. In fact, they may even expect that you keep it to yourself. I remember I worked at Delta Airlines, and I was working in the aerospace engineering department, structural engineering, working on aircraft, etc. And I was in college at the time. I was just studying, and I was growing in my faith quite a bit. And I remember I was sitting in my own little cubicle, and I could hear on the other side of the cubicle a conversation about how uncomfortable this one employee was about somebody having a religious image of Jesus in their office. And I remember him saying that in a workplace you shouldn't have photos in your office of Jesus photos of Jesus. You shouldn't have photos of Jesus at all, but an image of Jesus on the wall, because it makes me uncomfortable. That's what he was saying. That's what you're facing when you go out there. In the schools, my God help us what's happening in the schools. It is just craziness. So it's hard for you. But the thing is, the calling to evangelize doesn't necessarily mean simply just with words talking about Jesus. And you may expect me to say, like St. Francis would say, preach the gospel and when necessary choose words. Well, first of all, he never said that. Did you know that? And sometimes we preachers want to take it easy on you. And so we say, don't worry about talking about Jesus, just live a good life, live according to Christ and his teachings, and that'll take care of it. No, that's not it either. We got to talk about him. We got to start name dropping Jesus. Name dropping him, and doing it in a way that's exciting. So it's not beat people over the heads with the Bible, nor is it don't talk about him, but live him. Neither one is good. It's really look at where the person is right now and take whatever is the next step. Now for Peter, when he was right there in Jerusalem, those Jews were primed for it. They were ready. They had been formed over years by the prophets and the law. And they were right in the middle of suffering. Did you know that? The Jews were in the middle of an incredibly oppressive experience because the Romans had conquered them, and now they were effectively slaves. And they were coming from all parts of the world. Why is that? It's because one empire after another invaded their land and threw them all over the world in order to weaken their country, to weaken their nation, their tribes. They were ready for a savior. They were primed for it. That was the next step. So Peter just said, repent and be saved from this wicked generation. 3,000 were converted that day because they were ready for it. So the question to ask is, in your own workplace, in your own home, what is the next step? Perhaps it isn't be saved from this wicked generation. Or maybe it is. Maybe they're ready for that. No. What is the question that we ask? The first question that we ask is, does this person believe in Jesus? That's it. Does this person believe in Jesus? And if not, how much do they know about Jesus? And if not that, then we begin to ask some other questions. Okay, so how do we approach that? How do we approach this person to begin that conversation about Jesus? Now let's simplify this a bit more, because I think there could be a bit of complexity when we talk about helping somebody discover Jesus. What does it actually mean? Jesus says to us, he said to the disciples, and he's saying to us, the day that we were baptized, he sent us out, and he said, go and make disciples of all nations. Right? What does that mean? That means go and make them followers of me. Make them fall head over heels for me. Make them completely lay themselves down at my feet and trust in me. That's what he's saying. Notice he's not actually saying, not necessarily saying that here and now make them go to Mass every Sunday. It's fascinating, right? He does say, teaching them all that I have commanded you. Now going to Mass every Sunday is part of the life of being an authentic disciple, but he says go and make them disciples. So what that actually means is this, and this is what the bishops have said, and Pope Francis has said this, Pope Benedict as well. He said that the work of evangelization means to set up a meeting. You all remember the story of Philip and Nathaniel? Nathaniel is our own patron saint, St. Bartholomew. And Philip said to Nathaniel, come and see. Come and meet Jesus. That's what we're doing when we are evangelizing. We're saying, come and meet Jesus. And then third, we have to be attentive to the stages of conversion of someone. So right when someone's, for example, sometimes we can get really excited. We invite a neighbor to church. They don't ever go to church, and they come with us. And they say, I really like that. I think I'm gonna go every Sunday. Let's do this. This is great. And then we think, oh, right, they're converted. Not necessarily. And sometimes we can throw so much at them that they get overwhelmed, like, this is too much. I can't take this. We have to be attentive to that. So the stages of conversion are trust. Like I trust you to flip the slide, thank you. Trust. Is there trust? Is there connection? Is there a relationship between both of you? Right? I have conflicts in my own family where, some members of my family belong to a typical American family, they've fallen away from the church. And there are other parts of the family that want to call them on it and say, what gives? What's your issue? But some of them, and some of the members in the family, don't ever talk to them. They don't call them. They don't wish them happy birthday. And I remember wondering, if you don't talk to them even to wish them a happy birthday, or to see them, go and visit with them, besides just on Christmas, why would you talk to them now about Jesus and challenge them about how they've left the church? There isn't that level of trust and friendship. Start there. Form that relationship of love and friendship, and then offer the ultimate friendship, the ultimate love of friendship, which is Jesus. Second is curiosity. So somebody might be curious about the faith. Why do you Catholics do that? That's kind of weird. Anybody ever ask you a weird Catholic question? What is it with the Pope? Why does he wear white? Yeah? Curiosity. That's a good thing. So that's a time to kind of be easy on them. Don't open up the Catechism of the Catholic Church and start reading them paragraph 1 to 73. Right? They're not ready for that yet. Just kind of ask a question and then ask with some curiosity what piques your interest about that. Number 3 is seeking. Now when they're seeking, they're actively seeking. So they're beyond curiosity. Now they're like, give me more. I would like to know some more. So maybe that's when we can give them some books. Or let them know about RCIA. And they say you can just explore it. Now, the next part will be the deciding. So the person has learned about the faith. Now it comes to a moment of decision, where they're sitting on the fence. Am I really going to give myself over to Jesus? Believe it or not, the vast majority of Catholics, even after having received all the sacraments, are really just between curiosity and seeking. The vast majority. They haven't really made that decision, or even knew that they're supposed to make a decision to begin with. That it actually involves a decision to fall head over heels for Jesus. Then finally, discipleship is the last step of conversion. Where you say, Jesus, you are my life, you are my all, and I want to open myself up to you completely. And those are the kinds of folks that are open to the Spirit. Folks like you that are here tonight. Now, this is cyclical. Okay, so it's not like, okay, now you've reached discipleship, you're done. No, we go in cycles, right? We go in cycles over time. We also go in cycles in our spirit. So we have different levels of conversion. Some parts that are still deciding whether or not, like there's a part of us that's like, yeah, I'm all for this. And then there's still some other part of your soul that hasn't caught up. That's called sin. Right? So they're still like, oh, get over here. Stop getting angry at my wife all the time, Stop gossiping, right? That's that part that's not discipled yet, right? Okay. Finally, one is not truly a disciple until they become disciple makers. That's something that gets overlooked. One is not truly a disciple until they become a disciple maker. Just like Philip, by the way. Philip became a disciple of Jesus, already followed him. And once he said to Nathanael, to St. Bartholomew, come and see, in a way, that was a completion of his discipleship. Okay. So that's the response of the church. Now let's talk about the response of St. Bartholomew, the Apostle, Catholic Church. You're there. Good. I trust you. I'm not even going to look. What's our response as a parish? We're going to move more from maintenance to mission with great energy and intention. Folks, this place is already hot. This place is hot. The skillet's on. It's time to fry it up and serve it. Serve up the gospel. And I really mean that. I'm not bragging because I'm not bragging about you because I'm your pastor. I'm bragging about you because I'm your pastor and also because it's true. And there are other priests that have come through here that acknowledge the same. I think that's why some of the priests come back so much, like Father Michael McFall, we can't get rid of him. He just keeps coming back, you know? Like an old penny, just keeps showing up. I'm just kidding, he's wonderful. I love the man. To go from 793 to 80-20. To go from 7% of Catholics being dynamic to 80%. Why not 100%? Well, it's because the 20% are the ones that we're bringing in from the outside. So the ones that are here already part of the community, 100% dynamic. That's it. Why is that? Why am I putting it so high? I'm not putting it high. I'm putting it exactly where Jesus put it. That's our mission. And then to act with clarity of vision. There's a saying, I think it's a Chinese proverb or something, that says that a dream without a plan is a fantasy. No, that's not it, excuse me. A dream without action is a fantasy, and action without a dream is a nightmare. A dream without action is fantasy, and action without a dream is a nightmare. It's really important as a youth ministry, as a parish, that we have a sense and a clarity of vision of what we are actually going to be doing over the next 5 years. I made a video, it was my first serious video, where I was talking about how all kinds of people have all kinds of ideas of what a Catholic parish should be doing. And a lot of great ideas. But a parish can't be doing all of these different things at once. We have to focus with intensity, right? Okay, so what is our vision? And by the way, this might be updated over the next year or so, because we're still working out a good vision statement for us. And we discerned this vision statement by those surveys. Remember the surveys and listening sessions that we've had over the past year? Yeah? So, believe it or not, it wasn't just about finding out if the air conditioning is too cold or not, right? Although that was helpful to learn, and I hope it's getting better. But also to find out what's the vision. Where is the Holy Spirit? Where does the Holy Spirit have you? So our vision so far is what we've worked out. St. Bartholomew. The vision of St. Bartholomew is that it becomes a place where faith is caught like fire, catch on fire, it spreads in an organic way. Holiness is fostered, so the fire that is there continues to be breathed with the oxygen of prayer and good works in community, and also where saints are formed through intentional discipleship, so that we can all be one in Christ. We capitalize the B, and that's because we want to stay away from becoming a church that does a lot of stuff. We want to be a church that is with Jesus, that is one with Him. And then our work flows from there. Next slide. The youth. I'm talking to you kids. You kids paying attention? She's taking a nap over there. What is your deal? Oh, busted. Oh, come on. All right, you're tired. That's fine. That's fine. So you kids, young people, you belong to this mission. Not just as recipients, but as active participants. And I don't know about you, but I get excited when I think about it. And you're already doing it in so many ways. I've already seen you out there. I do watch you carefully. And I see what you're doing. And you're doing good things out there. Next slide. Therefore, the purpose of the St. Bartholomew Youth Ministry, YM to make it shorter, is to apply its personal holiness, openness to the Holy Spirit, and virtue of charity to create a space. And these are the three things that I hope will continue to be repeated for our youth program. Create a space where it becomes a place of discipling. What is discipling, by the way? It means being a disciple and making others disciples. That's discipling. It's not a real word, I made it up, but I think it's a really good word. So it means to be a disciple who's making others disciples. So it's a place where that happens. It's a school of discipling, and it's a source of discipling. So it becomes a place where when people are participating in it, they are being made disciples. It becomes a school so they learn how to actually, how to make other people disciples. And then it becomes a source so people are sent out into the world to make disciples. At Katy High School in Cinco Ranch, in Seven Lakes, and Chick-fil-A. I know some of you work at Chick-fil-A, so I've seen you out there collect Chick-fil-A. All right, next slide. Now, having said all this, we're getting now more into the brass tacks of things. So there are multiple levels of formation that we're going to be engaging in, and I'm not going to go into the whole comprehensive plan because there's not enough time tonight. But there's multiple levels of formation. So, but where do we want to focus first? Where do we want to focus our formation? Believe it or not, it won't be really exclusively with our young people. It will be with family. All of you. Moms, dads, godparents, brothers and sisters. Families are the source, center, and goal of youth formation. Parental discipling, parents, is what you're all about. Especially when you've made the promise, or when you profess the faith on behalf of your baby, and so that you believe, all the church believes, and you renounce Satan. Parental discipling is the most important and effective part of youth ministry. So I hope you're picking up on the fact that you are the youth ministry, huh? That you're it, parents. We don't want to kick you out. In fact, it's the opposite. You're bringing us in. You're bringing us into the youth ministry. The St. Mark's staff, therefore, and the parish exists as part of the youth ministry to help families advance this vision that I spoke about. So the first step will always be to equip you, to equip the families, and help guide them in their work of forming the youth. That's it. That's the meat and potatoes of what we're going to be about. Okay, so where do we begin? That's a big plan, right? A lot of stuff happening. Where do we begin? Well, we want to become a place of discipleship. So that's where I propose that we begin. We become a place of discipleship. To form a space where our youth fit into the parish life, rather than becoming kind of a ghetto, right? A kind of a separated community of youth, but rather they become integrated like salt. They salt up the hot plate of the parish. I don't know. I messed up that one. But they become a flavor, right? They become part of the flavoring of the parish. Discipleship entails belonging, believing, and behaving. And this is another thing that Matthew Kelly talks about. He says that, it entails belonging, believing, and behaving. And we have tended to start with the behaving, and then move on to the believing, and then we work on them belonging. Because I think it's natural. We want our kids to behave, right? Because that seems to be the more immediate concern. You know, my son doesn't wake up from Mass. I gotta kick him to get him out, right? He's always on his cell phone, always playing video games. Or my daughter is so moody. I'm not sure what's happening, right? Whatever the problem is, it's focusing on behavior, but then there can also be the more fundamental question when it comes to their faith. Do they feel like they belong to the community? Remember what I said, if we were to go back 5 or 6 slides, when I said the first step is trust, right? Trust is formed in relationship and community. So if our young people are attached to the community of the parish, that forms that bridge of trust, where that place of discipleship can be real. So we want to start with belonging without forgetting about the other two. So another way that I want to kind of make this a bit clearer is to look at our emphasis. Because I'm not saying we're going to get rid of catechism. I'm not saying we're going to get rid of moral teaching. That's not the idea. We're going to switch emphasis. You ever watch boxing? Anybody watch boxing? You watch boxing? Yeah, you watch boxing? It's a bad sport. Don't do it. But I remember watching Rocky Balboa. Huh?
Yeah.
And Rocky Balboa, I remember he was fighting Mr. T. Do y'all remember Rocky 3? Anybody? Rocky 3? Yeah, it's a good movie, right? Anyway, so there was this really mean boxer, Mr. T, who just pounded Rocky to the ground. And Rocky had this injury where he had a blindness in his right eye. And because of that, he wasn't able to defend himself with the right eye. And so what his coach taught him to do, he didn't say stop boxing at some point. He actually coached him and said, switch sides. He was still punching. He was still boxing. He was still using the same style. He just switched sides and used all the same skills. That's what we're doing. We're shifting. We're not getting rid of things. We're shifting emphasis. We're switching sides to work on that weak point. And that weak point is the difficulty of forming community and proclaiming kerygma. We're very strong in catechism, but we need to shift a bit, which brings me to the next slide. So what does that mean? That means that we have to move from being an event-focused youth ministry to a relationship-focused youth ministry. And I think I can say just a little bit more about that. So oftentimes, a youth ministry is graded based on how many kids they can get to show up at a big event. So if we can get, do I have an update? No. So if we can get 1,000 people at this concert, man, that's a big success. Which it can be. That can be a definition of success for an event. But it can't be the end-all and be-all of youth ministry, having big events. In fact, you could have a big event like that, but there could be no formation of relationship with Jesus. I remember one time I got in an argument with a priest. We do get in arguments sometimes. We have different opinions, And we were talking about whether or not you can make the Mass a bit too entertaining, or that can become distracting. And I remember he was saying that their level of music and what they're able to do in the Mass, that they have the Mass is just packed with people. And so I said, but there can be a point where you can make the Mass so entertaining that it becomes about the entertainment and not about the mystery of Jesus. And he was saying there's no conflict. And so I said, so what you're telling me is this. Let me tell you something. At St. Bartholomew, we have the money and the resources to bring in Beyonce.
Yes!
We have the money and resources to bring in Beyonce to do a concert at St. Bartholomew. And we would pack the house. Does that form a relationship with Jesus? No. If we put her in the Mass, like he's a cantor for the Mass, and instead of singing the song, she sings that. No, not that one, the other one that she sings. Anyway. That's it. That's the one. That's really good. So, big event doesn't form a relationship, right? Move from a few large groups to many small groups. So here's the other thing too. So we tend to grade also success based on how many kids are showing up to our weekly youth program. Now there can be a kind of success measure, because you do want a certain number of people, because you don't want to dedicate resources to something that is really designed for a larger group, and you don't have a large group showing up, right? But that can't, again, be the end-all and be-all. Now, this is the part that's innovative. This is the part that people are still confused about, and I still don't know exactly how to do it either, because it's something new. And that is to move from having a couple of large things that happen to many, many, many small groups, where you have pockets of youth gathering together, 4, 5, 6, 7. I know that I've asked a question when people talk about their ministries, and they say, we only have 15 people show up. I say, that's fantastic. How many are you looking for? I had somebody come and talk to me yesterday and say, we had our retreat, we only had 250 people. I said, that's a lot of people. How many do you want? I want 1,000. What do you want 1,000? Where'd you get that number from? Oh, I don't know. There's another retreat that has 1,000. So what? What does Jesus want? Maybe he doesn't even want you to have 250. Maybe he wants you to only have 25. Since when did numbers become the game by which we are evangelizing? Sure, we had 3,000 people that converted on that very same day, and if that's what God wants us to do, then that's what we should do, but that shouldn't be the end-all, be-all. And even back then in the ancient church, they did split the church into different small communities, because they understood that as well. So to move from a few large groups to many small groups. To move from youth ministry to youth ministries, plural. There's a reason why I have a different caliber of people that are directing youth ministry. Lowell and Suzanne. They have the ability to oversee and set up such a massive, dynamic life where you have multiple youth leaders, volunteers, who are creating these small youth ministries. So what's an idea that I'm thinking of? I'm thinking of like a soccer youth group, right? You're all about it. She's ready to start. Laura's ready to start. Go get the soccer ball. Go get it. Who wants to join? There we go. See? Already starting. So that's like one idea. Because not every kid wants to go to a Bible study, maybe. Right? Or maybe not every kid wants to play sports. They just want to sit down and talk about how movies are connected to the Bible. Why not? So you have a movie group. In other words, we're gonna actually treat them like people. Right? Because that's what we do with every other person in the parish. Right? We don't say to them, we're all going to have one big adult group and we're going to gather all together, on Wednesday. And that's going to be it. No, we've got like 80 ministries. There's no reason why we can't have that for our youth. And the advantage of having those smaller groups is, guess what? If you're in a smaller group, what do you have between each other? Connection, right? Yes. And that forms what? Bonds and? Trust, which becomes a place in which we can begin to disciple. You see? I hope it's paying off the time you're spending here listening to me talk at you. Okay. So we're also going to be shifting from catechesis to fundamental conversion. I think I've spoken about that enough. Not getting rid of catechesis is going to be a very major part of the program, but we're going to be focusing more on the fundamental conversion. Going from staff-centric to parish-wide. So the ways that we have been doing youth ministry for a long time, and it's paid off in some ways, but it hasn't paid off in the way that we wanted to pay off, is that you have one or two youth ministers and they become the center of youth ministry. In other words, it's dependent on their personality and on their expertise, on their ability to give talks, on their ability to organize, and it's on them. And when that youth minister leaves, the youth program crashes. Why? It's because it was all about the youth minister. Same thing happens in parishes with pastors. So I do things a certain way that people don't like, and one of those ways is I delegate, and I move things off, right? And I say, go to Cindy, go to Suzanne. Why? It's because St. Bartholomew isn't about Christopher. It's about Jesus. And I have my role here to help all of us grow closer to Jesus. Sure, I'm in the center. I'm in the center at the Mass. I'm in the center in setting vision, but that center has to flow out. And the same is true of our youth ministers. We don't want a youth minister or staff-centric youth ministry, but parish-wide. Where we bring in adults that become leaders in the community, and we bring in well-formed youth that become leaders in the community, and then they become the ones who are doing the discipling. Moving from staff-centric to parish-wide. And then finally, and this is the one I already mentioned, going from a parental vocation including youth ministry to youth ministry being included in parental vocation. I think I said that already. We're not saying parents, we want you to be part of youth ministry. No. It's the opposite. You're ultimately the youth ministers. You're the ones advancing the mission for your kids. You're like God to your kids. Do you know that? You really are. That's psychologically, the therapists say that the parents help the kid form an image of God. You're including us in the formation of your children, and that's what we're going to be shifting the emphasis on. Even though we are here to serve you, and you are part of the youth ministry too, so we're not getting rid of that dynamic either. Okay. So finally, let's take some action. So here's the last part. What can you do tonight? So I talked about a lot of big ideas, right? And that's what tonight's all about. It's about big ideas. But here's some little things that you and I can do. The most important is prayer. Prayer, right? How long do I say it? I recommend a certain time frame. What's the time frame? 20 minutes. I went from 15 to 20, right? Don't worry, I'm not going to go over 20 for this year. So, faithful participation in the sacraments, duh. Daily prayer, is for 20 minutes. Penance, do some kind of fasting or abstinence, more than give up chocolate, something that's meaningful. So, any kind of form of fasting too. Adoration of the Blessed Sacrament moves mountains, folks. I think the reason why the parish is as good as it is, and it's fantastic, is because of the Blessed Sacrament being adored 24/7. Pray for protection from the evil one. Folks, Jesus said that the gates of hell shall not prevail against the church. I always thought that was kind of weird. Like, you mean that the gates of hell aren't going to open into the church? No, it's the opposite. It's that the church is sent to go and storm the gates of hell, bust them open, and get people out of there. That's the mission of the church. We are attacking directly the gates of hell, going out there into the world. Those youth who are lost, and there are a lot of lost youth. I'm not giving you any news here, you know that. So pray for protection from the evil one, because in my experience, and I've already experienced this already, doing this kind of work at my other parish, once we started doing stuff like this and talking about stuff like this, some weird stuff is happening. Weird stuff is happening. Pray for protection. Pray as a family. I think I've spoken about that. And are you busy? Question mark. I am busy. Okay. Well, in addition to the 20 minutes, if you can get it in, there's other things that you can do all throughout the day. Throw javelins. So like, Jesus, I trust in you. Or Jesus, have mercy on me. Or I give praise to you, Father, right? And then you move on to the next thing. Or maybe just say a quick prayer for the youth. Maybe you're thinking about the youth. And you're thinking about, man, Father Christopher, I just don't know if he knows what he's talking about. Lord, please help Father Christopher. That's it. That's a javelin. That helps. Big time. Big time. Serving. Sign up tonight. It would be great if every single one of you could put your name, number, and email and put yourself on our list of people that we can call on to help. Another thing you can do tonight is consider being a small group leader. Consider nomination to the core team. I don't know if we're accepting more core team members, but consider being nominated for it. It's not one of those things that you can just jump on and be on, because there's certain qualifications. And I think we can talk about you being in the small group leadership first and develop your skills and get some experience and then be on the core team. We're all about that, about formation. Recruit. So what am I talking about? If you're going to be a volunteer for the youth ministry, go out and recruit more people to help you. And it's actually not as hard as you think. Recruiting isn't saying so much, we need help for the youth ministry. You want to come help out every Tuesday night? What? Every Tuesday night? No, what you say is, this Wednesday, I need to go to the store and pick up some punch. Can you want to go with me and help me and just take it over to the youth night this Wednesday? Yeah, sure, I ain't got nothing to do. Or, yeah, sure, I was going to do this, but yeah, I'll hang with you. That's recruiting. Little things like that to help include people into the youth ministry. Invite. So invite young people. Same thing. Well, that's why we want to break out of just having 2 events a week, to break out more into having different youth ministries, because then it's easier to say to kids, we're going to be playing soccer over here tomorrow. You want to go, dude? Y'all say dude? Say bro. What's up, bro? What's up, bro? What up? You got swag? Swag, is that a thing? Oh, gosh. You kids. Oh, my gosh. I am the dad. I am the not cool, awkward dad. All right. Invite them. I remember we had kids playing soccer at Resurrection. They kept using our field, and they weren't authorized to. It was the field belonged to our Catholic school. Then I realized there are kids here that I don't see at church ever. And I said, I know, Father, they never use a church, and then they're using our field. I said, that's fantastic. Let's get some of our youth ministers or some adults to go out there and just stand out there and make sure they're safe. That's it. That's all we have to do for a safe environment. Let the kids be out there and play soccer. Hang out with them. They'll never go to church, but they're coming to church at that moment, and then you become the representative of Christ for them. Anyway. Isn't this stuff exciting? I get excited about this. Take initiative and don't procrastinate. Take action. Promote this with a Christ-like attitude. So with great positivity and energy and enthusiasm, you don't have to understand everything about the program. But I believe that if you're like Christ in this program, you're going to help advance it. Reject cynicism and gossip. This kind of stuff, cynicism and gossip, when I talked about the devil attacking, that's how he does it. If he can't get us to back away from the mission, he's going to work through people and try to find spiritual weakness in people that are vulnerable to cynicism and gossip. Resist it with all your strength. And if you hear somebody else gossiping in a negative way about the youth ministry, you can say, I'm sorry, I'm not interested in this conversation. I'm all for the youth ministry. I'm 100% behind it, and I invite you to be as well. And also work in communion. For all of us to work in communion means that even if we have our differences with each other, which we do, we're always going to have differences and division in ministry and youth ministry. We want to work in communion. This is the next slide. Communication, stay informed. Read the bulletin every Sunday. Visit regularly, st-bart.org, or for youth ministry, you have it written down here on this piece of paper. You have it here. It says st-bart.org/faith formation teams. Also listen to the announcements. There's always stuff happening. And then learning. Learn. Grow in your own faith. Be fed on your own. Read at least 10 minutes every day. Or here's another trick. This is what I do sometimes. Pop a CD. Get one of the CDs in the kiosks in the entrance of St. Bart's. Put that sucker in your car. You're stuck in traffic, push play. That's it. And you'll pick up, you might be sitting in traffic listening for 45 minutes. And that could be like 30 pages of a really good spiritual work. Participate in adult faith formation events. Go to forum.org. We talked about all that. frplant.com. And also there are resource lists as well. I was going to talk about, but I want to go and bring it to a close. I was going to talk about our youth ministers, Cindy, Lowell, and Cindy's not a youth minister, but she's the supervisor of the youth ministers. So she oversees the entire department of evangelization and catechesis because it all needs to be one synthesized effort that's combined. Suzanne as well. I have listed here some of their duties so you can understand a bit more how I divided up the labor, because I did restructure things in order to bolster and to help advance the vision of the parish in the way that I just described. So, there you are, Suzanne. You're there. And you're there.
Here.
So, at any rate, so you can always ask questions about that later. I'll go ahead and end it there and just go ahead and open it up to questions.